All right, guys, what's going on? It's Jack, and welcome back to another video. So right now, I'm looking at the console. This is Xbox specifically, and I want to see kind of how Splitgate 2 is doing. And in terms of online multiplayer, I put that in the filter. We're in the top 6, obviously being beaten out by Fortnite, Minecraft, Marvel Rivals has stayed really good, Roblox, and Grand Theft Auto 5 Online. So we're doing pretty good on the Xbox side of things. PlayStation, on the other hand, is a little weird because this is the top 100 over the last 7 days, and this is for all platforms, right, on the PlayStation side of things. And even though everything kind of seems to match to a certain extent over here in terms of Roblox and Fortnite and stuff like that, the numbers of the players is kind of weird because as far as the PlayStation is concerned, I mean, I think there's a lot more people than 2,796 over the last 7 days in terms of the top 100. I certainly believe that there's more numbers than this. But at the same time, it could be the numbers that are on right now. But at the same time, it also says these are the stats for the top 100 most played games in the last 7 days on PSN, right? So, I mean, I don't know if it's keeping track of things in terms of real time. Let's see if these numbers change by refreshing the page real quick. No, all these numbers are the same. So, all right, so I'm going to go down, and we are at number 46 with only 255. I think if people watch this video, I think more than 255 are on PlayStation 5 and PlayStation 4 combined. I mean, it's just kind of weird. So I'm not sure in terms of how to take this, but I mean, at the end of the day, it's still number 46, especially when you take into consideration all these other games that are also single player games as well. So again, I couldn't filter it out because there's no option. And now when we go over here to Steam charts over here on Splitgate 2, these are the last 30 days. The average players were a little over, they're almost at 9,000, but the peak number of players was over 25,500. So the numbers on Steam have also dropped. But I mean, granted, Steam is not the only platform on PC that Splitgate 2 is available on, but it's probably the most popular out of all of them. So granted, this is a 7-day, so this is 48 hours. Why is this? Oh, let's check this out. This is the last 30 days, but let's go over here to 1 month and see if I can come on now. Why is it not letting all? I don't know. Again, more or less the same. So May 26th to June 19th. Yeah, this is a little bit more. This is a little better. So but yeah, these are about the numbers that you're looking at right here. So the numbers are a little bit, and again, as you go on, these numbers have also, like when you look at over here, from this point in time where we had 25,000, now we are down to, a little over 9,000 or whatever it is. So the numbers here seem to be on par as far as Steam is concerned. So let's get into the regular gameplay commentary so that way we can talk about this a little bit in further in terms of why it might be. And this is where I want to involve you guys in the conversation as well. So let's get right into the regular gameplay commentary. All right, guys, welcome back. And now we're on to the regular gameplay commentary. Now, so let's get into a little bit of a more in-depth discussion as to why this may be. And the reason why I want to talk about this is because from a gameplay perspective, which is what we're going to be focusing on here, we're not going to be focusing on like all the other dramatic and controversial stuff. We're going to be focusing on what makes a first-person shooter good, what makes it solid, right? What makes it a good game. And that is the gameplay, the mechanics, how the game feels, the connection, hit detection, all that kind of jazz. Because, well, for the most part, this game hits on pretty much all the necessary checkboxes, in my opinion. Because for me, it's all about the fun factor. It's all about, what the game offers. Like, for instance, at its bare bones, right, which is its foundation, does the game offer something solid and something consistent? Obviously, not every game can say that that's been the case, but this game certainly delivers in that aspect. And for me, it's got the fun factor and everything like that. And that is where I want to get into this more in depth, because if you paid attention, really close attention to detail to what I just said, I said the words "for me." Now, I am getting closer to 41 years of age. In September, I will be 41. And I grew up in an era to where the arena multiplayer shooter was the start of the multiplayer shooter, all the way back in the late 90s with PC, with Quake 3 Arena. I still remember Fatality, aka Jonathan Wendell, kind of ruling the scene in terms of like beating the entire competition, being one of the first, if not the first, competitive players to win money in competitive gaming and stuff like that in the game. and it was limited to PC, but it was Quake 3 Arena, and it was an arena shooter. Fast forward to, like, let's say Halo Combat Evolved, they brought that experience, granted it was a much slower experience, onto the Xbox, and then a few years later with Halo 2, obviously things just started really widening and opening up because Xbox Live went live and more people were able to play it, et cetera, et cetera. The world absolutely loved it, right? But then you fast forward later on to that, you had Call of Duty entering the scene, and it did things that the arena shooter did not do, right? It basically made it to where, hey, if you hit your shots, your opponent will die almost instantly because of how the time to kill works. And then there was a progression system in the form of XP. You could customize your weapons, stuff like that. So basically things that you couldn't do in arena shooters, traditional arena shooters, like an Unreal Tournament or a Quake or things like that. All of a sudden, these other games, particularly like, let's say, a Call of Duty, started offering that. Now, granted, Halo had ended up evolving, like, let's say, in Halo Reach, it started implementing some of those things into its game as well, with the commendations, aka challenges, and things like customization and everything like that, and variety of gameplay. But still, you can't ignore the historic facts, and you can't ignore the fact that after a certain amount of time has passed, there is something called genre fatigue. It's not just franchise fatigue, but it's also genre fatigue. Even if you look at Battle Royale, for instance, despite the fact that Battle Royale, obviously, in terms of what you just saw, is still pretty damn popular to this day, right? But it's not at the peak that it once was. And a big reason for that is because, well, a lot of time has passed. There's a lot of games that have also come out, both on the single player and multiplayer perspective side of games, different flavors, and different ways of introducing the skill gap. Because Splitgate 2, I feel, even though it's trying to branch out and cater to as many people as possible, when you think about it, Splitgate 2 seems, and again, I could be wrong about this, but this is just my point of view, and this is one of the reasons why I made this video, to kind of, broaden and widen the point of views, and to get more brains on the matter other than just my own. But it seems that Splitgate 2 seems to appeal to a very specific type of audience, the ones that love arena shooters, the ones that love a specific type of pace with their multiplayer shooters, and maybe even a little bit more competitiveness and whatnot. But the thing is, I can't just point my finger to the skill gap, because when you look at games that are old but still popular to this day, like, for instance, a CSGO, a Rainbow Six Siege, a Fortnite, right? All these different games. And it's like, look at Valorant, for instance, right? That's a popular game as well. So it's not necessarily the skill gap. I think a lot of it has to do with pacing, and I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that if a genre is really old, that has something to do with it as well. And if you introduce a certain amount of elements and pacing into a game, it may or may not cater to the majority of your audience, and it may cater to just a specific type of audience. Now, me personally, I don't think there's anything wrong with that, because arena shooters have been something that have been neglected for so many years. Granted, they were the first types of first-person shooters to come out and to gain popularity within the community many years ago, and they've been kind of a hell of a lot less popular over time. But there's a smaller type of community, an audience. A lot of us are older as well, anywhere from their 30s to 40s, like myself, and in some cases even older than that, to where they are really big fans of games like Unreal Tournament, Quake, a lot of the traditional, arena shooters that are not so common nowadays. So I think to a certain extent that may have something to do with that as well. Now, granted, there are a few things like a ranked play, which is coming within the next week or two or so, as well as, the mastery camo system, which is coming in a week or two or so ago, or so from now. In this day and age, when you look at players, they have to also have a quote unquote reason to play that goes beyond just fun, because at first, when you look at a game like Quake 3 Arena, or when you look at a game like the original Halo, or even the first few Halos, there was, other than the rank system, there really was no progression system. You were just getting on there and you're playing from game to game, and you were just having fun. You came back to play because it was just fun. It was addictive. You tried to get better. But regardless of whether or not you were progressing in your skill, you were still having fun, right? Because it felt good to play. It felt good to get a kill. It felt good to get an assist. It felt good to get a nade kill. It felt good to spawn in and try to shoot and kill a target, right? Nowadays, fast forward all these years later, so much of that has changed. Right now, so many players have the mindset of, if I don't kill my target, I'm not satisfied, or I'm not going to get a dopamine rush or whatever, right? The fact that a game feels smooth and it has kind of a little bit less of a, it still matters, don't get me wrong, but it seems to have less of an impact. Like right now, I think more and more players, regardless of their skill level, care on whether or not they play well in a game. So therefore, if they do well, they're more likely to stick to it. And if they do less well, they're more likely to, more likely to quit. And I think that's one of the problems with Splitgate 2. I mean, granted, it's actually a problem with every multiplayer shooter if you think about it, which is one of the reasons that I'm assuming, which is one of the reasons as to why they implemented certain matchmaking algorithms so that way they can, kind of hold the hands of the casual players so they don't get their butts whooped as bad by more experienced players, or whatever it is. I mean, I personally think that every player, regardless of skill level, can always get better if they put the time. And ultimately, for me, I think what's important is the fun factor. If the fun factor is there, then the player will have a reason to come back and play. But a lot of people won't agree with me, particularly of this particular generation, because of the fact that things have changed and things have evolved. So, I mean, the game itself, like I said, Splitgate 2 does reach out and go beyond just your traditional arena shooter. Like with its onslaught mode, it's like a big team battle, so to speak, in its own way. The battle royale, it's its own flavor of battle royale, which is one of the reasons why I thought, even though I would have loved to have seen personally, I would have loved to have seen something a little bit different than a battle royale. It's still kind of a different battle royale if you think about it, right? So, because I for one don't like battle royales, but I know a lot of other people do. Obviously, it's still popular to this day, even though it's not at its peak like it once was. So a lot of people love battle royale. So in a sense, it kind of from a trying to appeal to a more massive audience as well was to a certain degree the right move. But at the same time, the game has to also appeal to its OGs, right? To its audience in terms of what made Splitgate unique in the first place, because there are members of the community that have stuck around ever since 2018 or 2019, since the original Splitgate 1 came to fruition. So there's a lot of there is a lot of that in this game. But again, when you're talking about the overall population, it's like right now there's just so many different options and so many different ways for players to engage in different types of games. When you look at, like, for instance, like I said, a Rainbow Six Siege or Fortnite and stuff like that, they do have their own skill gaps, but it's the pacing and it's the fact that they're a lot more modern than, like, let's say, an arena shooter, which at its core is actually an old genre. It is the oldest FPS genre, as a matter of fact, because that's how it actually started. It started with your arena shooter. So I think, and again, I could be wrong, or this could be just one piece of the puzzle, right? Because there's so many ways you can go about this. But I think this is a significant reason as to why, or partially why, the population has dropped. And again, like I said, people these days play for more than just fun. I mean, I remember even back in the 2010s, like a friend of mine played all the way through Black Ops 1, right? But he stopped playing after he reached max prestige. And I'm like, why'd you stop playing? He's like, well, there's really nothing to grind for anymore, so I'm just playing a different game. I mean, despite the fact that he enjoys playing the game and stuff like that, he had to have, even back then, he had to have a reason to go back and play. He hardly played at all after after reaching max prestige and getting all the camo and getting all the camos for all the guns through the contracts and stuff like that. So I think that's also partially another thing in terms of this generation of players. So the ones that are likely to stick around are people that are similar to myself, that still love the game because it's fun to play, and then everything else is very much secondary. You know what I mean? So it's kind of a mindset thing. A lot of the people that have a certain type of mindset from a certain type of generation are more likely to stick around, while the more modern player is more likely to quit because, again, of a mindset. So that is my conclusion so far. I would really like to know, and I hope that, I know obviously most people that watch this video are not going to listen all the way through, but I really hope that that most of you guys have listened all the way through, or at least some of you guys have, so that way there could be like a full and comprehensive discussion in the comment section about this, because it is an interesting subject nonetheless, and at the same time, you really can't ignore historic facts. And the interesting thing about this is that the game itself it's not doing anything wrong from a gameplay perspective. This is one of the most addictive, if not the most addictive, first-person shooter experience that I've had in a long-ass time. And it's comparable to some of the greatest FPS games that I've ever played. So in my eyes, from a gameplay perspective, this game is, although it's not perfect because there's no such thing as a perfect game, it absolutely, hits all the right spots for me personally. But again, I think it all kind of boils down to mindset, as well as the evolution and history of where games were at one point and to where we are now. So with that being said, I really like to know in the comment section what you guys think. And as always, I like to thank everybody for taking the time to watch and or listen. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.